Hey, it's your boy T Rob. Welcome back to the podcast, Unapologetic Perspective. Um, Once again, we've been watching the numbers with every video that we put out. We're seeing our numbers are going up, our following is going up, and I want to tell everybody I really appreciate the love for the content that we're putting out. This stuff is near and dear to my heart, really. You know, the purpose of this show is to talk about my journey. So, if anything in my journey can help somebody out in their journey in life, that's the purpose of all of the content that I'm putting out. I believe wholeheartedly that I had to go through something in order to have a message for everybody out there who may think that they're alone in the struggle out here and that they've hit a dead end or hit a wall when it comes to trying to figure out what the direction is in life that they need to be going. So once again, like I said, man, I appreciate all the love that you all have shown me by liking and subscribing. If you haven't yet, if you watch my content more than once, if you're getting something from it, please hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. It helps the algorithm out. As we build, we're going to be putting out better content. I look forward to doing interviews with some of your favorite content creators talking about serious issues. Um, we want to try to address some things within ourselves, and that's the purpose of this. Is talking about what we can do, because we can't change the world. As I've said before, you can only see the world for what it is. The world can upset you, and you can feel like the world needs to change to fit what it is or the narrative that you believe. But at the end of the day, the world is what it is. We want to learn how to navigate within the world so we can have more peace in our souls. The thing about when you have a peaceful inside, it translates or it trickles down to everything else in your life. You'll find that your relationships are much easier. Your finances start to flow much better. Energy is surrounded by everything, right? Anything that we hold on to or put a lot of pressure on, we break. But the minute that we start to bring ourselves into ease and out of dis-ease, right? Let's look at that word, ease and dis-ease, right? Dis-ease being connected to the word disease, as in having something wrong internally. We can look at it in the same way with our mind state. When our minds are in dis-ease, then we start to realize that everything that we want, everything that we try to manifest, we push away from us. That's what these videos are about, and I appreciate the love. Sorry about that, Jeff, man. Hey, man, welcome to the show, man. I appreciate you taking this time out of your busy schedule. I know, and you're doing a lot of things, man. I've been keeping up with you. I follow your channel. I'm a huge fan. I
Hey,
actually have been watching you ever since you did the interview with the young ladies. I forget where they're from, but that
Canada.
interview, man,
Yeah.
has caused me to really follow you and see all of the things that you're doing. And I'm just
Mm,
impressed by the way that you're able to explain some of the issues that we're dealing with as Black men within the community. My channel focuses a lot on mindfulness and trying to get us as a collective to figure out how we can coexist. But not only that, I truly believe that if we work on ourselves individually, we can come together as a whole and better figure out how we could be better as a community. And so I think you're the right person to bring to the channel as my first guest. I want everybody out there that follows me and those who don't. Hopefully, you follow me after this interview to understand that this man is very important in the space, and
mm.
listen to what he has to say. You know, we're going to build right now. So thanks again, Jeff. I appreciate you.
Listen, man, I appreciate you welcoming me. I remember our first initial conversation leading up to this, and man, you was inspiring me over the phone. And then when I watched your stuff, I was like, yeah, I got to come through to his channel because he's definitely killing it. I love a lot of what you're focusing on, which is just taking men where they are and inspiring them to just boost them in the direction where they need to go to like make their lives better and hopefully their family situations and even just the generational impact. Kudos to you, man. You're killing it on your end as well.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. Um, what I kind of wanted to touch on first is kind of your credentials and what got you to decide to make a YouTube channel that was dedicated to the content that you create. For those who don't know, Ask a Brother podcast. Please like and subscribe and follow this man. He's killing it. But what made you decide that you wanted to do a YouTube channel in the first place?
Well, a few things, man. been doing this since 2014. So this is now officially going on 12 years of me working in
Yeah.
the field in this capacity, and something related to mental health. And, I'm a licensed professional counselor. As of now, I haven't decided if I'm going to renew my license in the next year or two, or if I'm just going to kind of let it go so that I can just completely freelance with just life coaching, counseling, whatever, across the board. I'll get more into that later as to why it is that I'm contemplating the whole licensure part. But as far as what I do, man, trauma specialist, therapist, worked in multiple different urban cities in the East Coast, particularly Wilmington, Philadelphia, and Camden. And, prison, school, outpatient program for years. And just got a really great wealth of knowledge and experience being surrounded by nonprofit work, grant work, working with judges, et cetera, to where I've kind of seen a lot of the full gambit of what the Black experience is like, especially as it relates to mental health, criminality, people just trying to get their lives back on track, substance use, et cetera. And the biggest thing that I was realizing over the last 4 or 5 years is much work as I felt was being done by myself and the people I was working with. There was always a cap on your ability to impact people and lives when you're working with people just directly one-on-one. And I realized that if, the internet's there and if people think that some of the things I'm bringing out there are worth looking into or opening people's minds and views open about, it kind of, I just took the gamble, honestly. I thought that, perhaps if it's working in every space that I've been at, seeing the impact, seeing the change, why couldn't I bring this to online and potentially impact even more people's lives and inspire more men that's never gone to therapy to start, to be much more mindful about and intentional about if they are going to do it, what types of therapists to avoid, which ones to potentially, especially for men and boys, which ones to work towards, and just overall, just inspiring people to just be much better at whatever it is that we're struggling with and seeking the help. And I think that's the biggest thing for me, normalizing
Absolutely.
men being able to reach out, connect, even creating an environment and way in which, if they're like, well, listen, Jeff, I rock with you, so maybe I can reach out to you and to book a consultation. That's what's happening. And the cool thing is I've talked to people from around the world, doing, since I've launched this last year. So it's that's probably why I did it, in the sense that I think that I could have impacted, connected with, and maybe even inspire way more people than just the people I was regularly working with every day.
Absolutely. You've definitely been an inspiration to me, man. I can say, and the fact that you connect with your audience and you're able to, give resources. Because one of the things I think is that we don't have enough community, right?
Hmm.
Oftentimes I found myself alone in my ideals, right? When you kind of get away from what may be considered the norm or what may be considered culturally normal in the
Hmm.
community, when you want to talk about actually what's going on with you, the things that are affecting your life, and you kind of want to be vulnerable. There's not a lot of spaces for that, right? We're not always given that opportunity or even allowed to allow ourselves to be vulnerable and talk about the things that may be affecting us. It's looked at as weak. You're looked at as, oh, you shouldn't be crying about certain things. You need to man up. When in
Hmm.
actuality, man, suppressing these things only causes us to have more trauma. We're supposed to be considered a strong community, but what we're doing is a lot of self-medication in order to deal with the things that we haven't addressed from our childhood, etc. I think I talked about it on the channel, how my brother passed away. He would have been 47 this year. He passed away in April. He would have been 47 in June 16th. He struggled with alcohol addiction. He struggled with mental health. He struggled with, smoking, all of these things. And we never really addressed the core issue of what was going on with him. And I think it's a big failure on our part because, that's a life that, could have been lived to the best of his ability. My brother was a great basketball player, somebody who had enormous potential, but we never figured out how to get him proper help in the health, in the mental health place. And as a result, his life ended what I would consider to be early,
Yep.
So I think spaces like this are important, so that's why I decided to finally start my channel to talk about my journey. He and I's journey was kind of contrast to one another. I
Hmm.
spent an enormous amount of time trying to figure out my own problems and ask myself, how can I get better? Because I struggle with mental health as well. Same trauma, we came from the same household. My father left when I was 3 years old, and that was actually my earliest memory in life. And so when I tried to put the pieces of my life back together, I had to go back down and figure out, okay, where are things coming from? And how did I end up at this point where some of the things that a normal adult should be able to do, I wasn't able to do. And I had to get through them in order to be more successful. Nobody was coming to save me. And I realized that. So I had to start doing the work on my own. But most people don't have the tools, I believe, to do that just
Hmm.
from their understanding of themselves. So that's the reason I created the channel. It's like once you get to a place where you can kind of understand yourself, maybe what your triggers are, why you are who you are, because we often believe that this is just who we are, right? I'm just me. This is me. That's not true. A lot of what you are and who you are comes from what's been programmed into you from your childhood on up. And so that's the reason why I started this channel, man. It's like, okay, let's take a deeper look at ourselves so we can figure this thing out. But also, in our relationships. So,
Nah, man. Like I said, this is amazing, and I hope that this leads to more like a renaissance in this space where men can start to build connections. We can build community, and even if it starts virtually, but it inspires us to figure out. Like for instance, since I started my channel, me and some guys, we launched a men's group, a men's self improvement group at that we meet with every week on Tuesdays, and you know that's kind of trickled into guys that weren't going to the gym, started going to the gym again, monitoring their diet, a lot of things that they should be doing they weren't doing, getting feedback and advice from different men in different areas of their life, that's seeing it from different angles. Very helpful for most men that are just living on islands and living
yeah,
amongst themselves, right? So that's the power of the internet. It can just be a gossip space. It could just be about distractions and watching sports, but it can also be a spot where we're very intentional about making room for figuring out, who do I need to connect with? Who do I need to build with? Who is it that I can do life with in such a way to where I'll end up being a better man as a result of them being, and either their influence, their presence, or just their feedback being a factor in the way in which I move and live. So
absolutely.
yeah, man. So I think what you're doing and what I'm doing, we're hitting it from different angles, but in the end, it should be more or less like the same impact.
Yeah. I want to touch on that too, man, because we're both married. I will have been married for 4 years coming up here, November 11th. How
Wow.
long have you been married?
My wife, we will be 3 years this November. Yep, this November. Our 1 year old will be 2 in July. So we got a lot of moving pieces going on as we speak. Yeah.
Understand.
Hmm.
Right on, man. So what do you think, man? Because it's a lot of brothers, man, who are, not brothers, but individuals in particular who are down on marriage, who say that the market isn't conducive for them to find the right kind of mate. And I want to speak to that a little bit, but I'd like to get your opinion on that first.
The starting point is, I think that two things can be true. I think marriage can be a beautiful thing. I think it could be very helpful. I think it can be a blessing. Unfortunately, that hasn't been the experience of a lot of men that are divorced, a lot of men who came from broken homes, and a lot of men who's actually out in the dating market trying to find women that they could see the relationship lasting with for the rest of their lives. Two things could be true, and I think that's probably the biggest issue with the space is people tend to pick a side and not acknowledge the other side and their strengths or the legitimate arguments that are on the other side. Women have changed, men have changed, roles are questioned and redefined and changed. The divorce incentives, with the family court system and the incentives they have in place, they want situations to end up in family court so they can get their cut. So there's a whole host of players and things way beyond just the individual couple that wants men and women to stay apart. And whether it's political agendas, business agendas, etc., um, and just the reality of how a lot of relationships have unfolded, all of those things are actually happening. My view, honestly, is one that I don't think marriage is for everybody. I don't think relationships are for everybody. I'm more interested in each person being honest with themselves about what they want, what they're willing to offer, and whether or not they're truly in it for the right reasons. Um, Once you know the answers to that and the other party is aware what those answers are, it's just about whether or not you're in alignment. That's my first view. Yeah. And number two, the way in which we're defining what it means to be married is something that's very Americanized and very cultural. Whereas if the American government up to this point hadn't made it to where you have to do something with the state, and the state has so much say over both the marriage and or granting a license and or if the marriage doesn't work out, we'd have a different definition of what it means to be married. There was religious marriages, there was just cultural ones amongst tribes, and because we live in a modern nation state, what we have in our heads is one that we adopted in the later, more recent part of human history as it relates to the state. You know, obviously, we've grown up in an environment where if you're not legally married with the state, then you're not married.
Yeah.
And I think what's happening is men are adjusting. They're adjusting to the market. They're adjusting to the laws not adjusting quickly enough. And they're reevaluating all of these things. And I don't shame or fault people for any of it. I came from a broken home. I was previously married before. So I see it all. I've seen I've helped men that's gone through divorce. I've helped people with really bad breakups. And our current system as relates to the state isn't designed to protect marriages or protect people, let alone protect men in the confines of an actual legal relationship, especially. So, there's a lot of factors at play. I think if the laws won't adjust, men are going to en masse, I think, continue to try to do what they think in their season of their lives makes the most sense. My hope and goal is that they can do it with integrity, with honesty and transparency, and that the women that are in their lives are understanding of what that is and what he's able to offer. And if she's okay with it, cool.
Absolutely. No, man, you're right on point, brother. I had no intentions on getting married. I'm gonna be honest with you, none whatsoever. And in fact, just to be honest, I have 4 kids from previous relationships. One with one woman, another with another, with 3 with another, and those were broken homes that I created as a result of coming from a broken home. You often kind of do the thing that you see, even if you tell yourself, I'm not going to do that, which I had no intentions of creating broken homes for myself. Ended up becoming a single father for 8 years. So I raised my kids for 8 years by myself. During that time, I met my wife, and I had no intentions of us getting married, but we just we sank together. It became something. It became very natural. But I can tell you what I learned in my marriage, because I learned a lot about myself. I didn't show up in service at first. I showed up wanting to receive something. And I had to take a step back and really take a good look at myself. So initially, when we got married, man, it was really difficult because I had a lot of things in my head. A lot of things were telling me this is not the right situation. She's going to do something. She's going to hurt you, etc. I didn't realize, and I didn't link that to my trauma from my younger years and from my childhood. So when I came into the marriage, man, I almost sabotaged it. Now, my wife is a single mother with 2 kids, 2 sons. Part of the reason why I married her, and part of the reason why I felt she was a good fit, was she showed me things differently. We're kind of close in age. I'm 45, she's 41. But she showed me growth, and she showed me that even though she had a past, where she was at now was somebody who learned from all of her experiences. Her father passed away and she moved to Arizona just like me. I moved to Arizona because I wanted to change my environment and start over. She did the same thing after her father died. She said it's now or never, She came here and started completely over without any help. Got on her feet, and she was doing well when I met her. She didn't need my help. But a couple of conversations kind of struck me early on in the relationship. One of the things that she told me, or one of the things that she did, was she accepted responsibility for the failure of her past relationship. She said,
Mm,
I kind
mm.
of, understand what I did wrong in that situation. And that blew my mind. In that moment, I was like, whoa. You know
Hold
what I'm
on, hold on,
saying?
hold on. We ain't gonna skip over that, bro. Like
Yeah,
that's a huge thing that I think in the dating market slash relationship market situation that I don't that's extremely underrated, that I don't think enough ladies that do want to get married or do want to be in long-term relationships realize that's a key distinguishing factor from her versus most men's experiences with most women, including
absolutely.
women they're in relationships with. Taking
Absolutely.
accountability and acknowledging things she could have done differently. When people ask why are so many men not getting married, part of it is if I do get married to a person who doesn't apologize, take accountability, or take ownership for things they need to do different, and they haven't done that historically, and they're not doing that when I'm first meeting them, why would I assume they would do that in an actual marriage and relationship?
100%.
So that's
100%.
that's huge, man, that she was able to show you that early, because it kind of changes your perspective of whatever it is people have gone through, because it distinguishes what they've gone through versus who they become. Whereas people who won't acknowledge certain things, won't apologize for certain things, I think what happens, man, is they actually don't ever fully grow or evolve from the things they went through. They actually bring those experiences, bring those triggers, bring all that stuff with them. And this is why they can't distinguish themselves presently versus what they've been through. It's the
Absolutely.
people who have done the self work, done the work, done the taken the accountability, made necessary changes. Now I can see a wife. Now I can see a husband in you. Yeah.
Another thing was that I found very interesting was how she talked in regards to her father.
Mm-hmm.
She held her father to the utmost, to the highest. And she would talk about how real he was with her. I was lucky enough to get a woman who is a good mixture of feminine and logical at the same time. So we would
Mm-hmm.
have conversations and she would blow my mind, man. I'd be like, oh, you're on point with that. Or she'd make me think. And oftentimes she'd challenge me on my ideas about things. And I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. I never thought about it that way. Let me recalculate on this situation. But one of the
Mm-hmm.
things she told me that her father told her is that, yeah, you're a good looking woman, but there's plenty of good looking women out there. What else you got? She
Mm-hmm.
said he just kept it real with her. He would tell her, hey, crying is not going to fix your problem. What are you going to do after you cry?
Mm-hmm.
He was just a man's kind of man. And I think oftentimes we fail our daughters because we want to kind of shield them from the world, even as fathers. Mothers do it instinctually, but I think fathers do it as well. But the father's job, I think, oftentimes is to come into the situation and give them a real dose of reality and let them know what the world is out there. And so he would always tell her, like, hey, you got to come up with a plan. You got to figure this thing out. Whatever it is that you're looking for in life is going to be your responsibility to get it. And yeah, you're a beautiful woman, but they make those and those are a dime a dozen. What else are you coming with?
Mm-hmm.
And I think it gave her a bit of, she said, man, he humbled me a great deal. I heard a guy say this before. He said, it's really difficult for a beautiful woman to see the world through a realistic lens unless her father sits her down and tells her first, yeah, you're attractive, but at some point, you're not going to be the hottest thing out there on the market. You need to
Mm-hmm.
have something else going for you. And I
Absolutely.
think that was one of the keys that, when we got together, I said, man, instinctually and naturally, I'm like, man, I think this woman is wife material. Her relationship with her kid's father was very important to me.
Mm.
She said, we weren't good for each other in the relationship, but he's a good father. And I can't take that away from him. So they had a relationship where they were actually able to co-parent because she wasn't looking at it from a situation of what he did to me. She's like, no,
Mm-hmm.
he's a great father. Our relationship just didn't work.
Yep.
But as far
Yep.
as him being a dad, I'm not going to interfere with that. I actually got a chance to meet him, nice
Mm-hmm.
guy. I actually met his mom. She still has a relationship with his mom. And I actually got a chance to meet his mom, good people. But I think as a result, the kids have turned out much better. On my end, It's been much more difficult because our relationships, with a relationship with my kid's mom, we haven't been able to co-parent. There's still a lot of baggage there, and it's
For
caused a
both of
great
them
deal
or
of
one of
strife
them?
for both of them.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah,
both
man.
of them. And I take responsibility for that as well. I tried, but I don't have full control of that situation.
Yeah, man. That's part of the issue that I've learned when trying to do the blended family situation is this is what can happen. And I think with your original question of like the thought of marriage and even men's attitudes towards marriage, you got to also factor in the market of men that are were in your situation or were in your situation as it relates to having children or dealing with women that have children. And not everybody's significant, like you said, her previous significant other who was a father of her child, co-parenting is great. You can come in and there's no threatening. There's we can integrate well. We That's not the case for you. And I think that's also what's impacting a lot of what we're seeing out here is you have people with no children dealing with people that do. You have people who don't have any children and are entering into those situations not knowing what those demands and sacrifices are going to look like, including potentially having to share your time and collaboration and plans, not only with the person you're in a relationship with, but making sure it coordinates with somebody that's not even in your relationship. All of this is in play. And these are all things that I think, what my platform I'm trying to do is try to get men to at least think through all of these scenarios, A, before they get themselves in it, and then B, if they are in it, what are my realistic options so that I'm not being delusional? We say the same thing with the ladies. Like, all the pretty privilege in the world isn't going to mean if you have 2, 3, 4 kids that every man in the world is going to want you or sign up to be with you. They may do it sexually, but they're not going to do it. And they're all not going to do that relationally.
Absolutely.
And again, if the roles are reversed, and if she was the one with the 4 kids and you were the one with 1, we don't know if you guys would have been in exactly this dynamic. So a lot of times it's timing. Maybe we can call it fate. It's where we are in a given season in our lives in terms of maturity, and if both people are truly committed to actually wanting it to work.
Absolutely.
And I'm happy, man, that you guys have that in place.
Yeah, because it's obviously not the normal situation. Obviously, it's, I think it was ordained by God. Like I said, in my relationship, I've learned a lot more about myself than I thought I ever would, man. And, at one point in time, man, I was very accusatory, and I was sabotaging my relationship. What I had to learn was that I still had things in my past that I had not yet reconciled with.
Mm-hmm.
And she brought those things to the surface, and I'll forever appreciate her for that. If our relationship didn't work and we decided to end it tomorrow, I appreciate her for the growth that she's given me. But what I realized is that I was holding myself to a very high standard, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to perform for her, for my children, and for everybody else in my life, because I felt like my value only came from me being in service and being able to give something else to other people. From the time I was young, I was basically told, like, you're not of any value unless you can give something, unless you have some money. And oftentimes where we come from in our communities, the people who are looked at with the highest regards are the ones who are either the drug dealers, have some money, have some status in the community. So my life was kind of fixed around that. And I was working myself to death, man, trying to live up to those standards. I had to take a step back, and what caused me to do it was I actually went to New York, and I was with my father and my sister on a family trip. And my father, like I said, he left when I was 4, but he had another family. He remarried and, had 2 more kids after the fact. And while we were out there, I kind of got a feeling of feeling left out. And as soon as I caught that, I identified with it. I said, oh, that's something from my childhood that I haven't reconciled. And I was excited about it. And I went home and I told my wife, like, oh, I caught something the other day when we were out and about. And I realized what it was. I didn't bring it to my dad, didn't bring it to anybody else but my wife, because I had finally gotten to a place where I realized that I didn't need validation from anybody else. And that started me on the journey to figuring out some other things in my life. And so I put the pieces together and I realized, oh, you've been looking for validation ever since you were probably 15 years old. And you are sabotaging your life and you're sabotaging relationships and you're not going into things with full faith because you're looking for things to end. You're thinking that if I don't have value and I don't bring some value, people are not going to love you. And you have to start loving yourself. And if you don't start loving yourself, this is only going to continue. So now our relationship is great, man. It's
Nice.
awesome. But, I talked to her about that and I told her, I said, thank you, because you brought something to the surface that probably would have never came up had we not gotten together.
Mm. Nah, man, I appreciate you sharing and opening up and letting me know more about your background and how you got to this point. And one of the things that you put out there that I think a lot of men wrestle with even to this day, even into their later years, is that dynamic of our value, both in our own eyes and in society's eyes, really is rooted in what we can produce, what we can bring to quote unquote the table. And there is a part of that. I mean, biblically, it's like a man that doesn't work doesn't eat, right? So
Absolutely.
there is a component of like being lazy and just existing for the sake of existing. I can see it both from a spiritual lens and from a practical lens how that tends to not help people long term outside of like a vacation or a break. But at the same time, especially in this country with the cost of living going up, yeah, it's totally normal, man, to for a lot of men to wrestle and struggle with that. And what you said about the validation you experienced when you were younger, or the lack of validation you experienced when you were younger, when we get validated in a healthy way when we're younger, typically validation isn't really externalized when we're older, meaning we're not looking outside of ourselves to confirm who we are and whether or not we're important and whether or not we have value. But when we're
Absolutely.
missing that when we're young, when we get older, you can imagine what it is that you could find yourself in, whether it's substance related, whether it's the wrong crowd, whether it's overworking, whether you name it, you're constantly trying to put yourself in positions and environments where people can see you. And sometimes some of those situations and environments are actually unhealthy or even outright toxic or dangerous. And that's often how it leads in that direction. It's really, really dope when you finally get with a person that's helped you to recalibrate what it is and that looks like. I've seen it so much, man, where, like you said, men will work themselves to death over a validation that they'll never be able to fill because they're trying to find a thing to fill it. It can only be filled from within. It'll
Absolutely.
never perfectly be filled because you hit this mark on a Tuesday. Like, well, what happens on Wednesday? You'll have guys who dedicated their entire lives to an organization or company, and when they retire, the next day they're like, now what? So I think for me, I think when we find meaning, when we find value, when we have our purpose in mind, it usually isn't rooted in one thing, and it shouldn't be. And I think when we, limit it to what we produce or what we can offer financially, puts us in a whole world of trouble when we lose our job, when we retire, when we get a pay cut, you name it. So yes, when we work, we do produce a value. I'm not one of these people that say it doesn't mean anything. But our value and our purpose can't really just be rooted just in that. And I think that's what I think your and my and other men and content creators that are moving in the lane we're doing. We're trying to get people to look at, what do you care about? What are you passionate about? Who are you responsible for? What do you want to accomplish in life? Why are you here? And when you start working through those questions, it's usually not rooted in just a job. Because if that was the case, people would look at me and be like, well, you're a therapist and that's all you. And I was like, well, listen, I could pull back from my 9 to 5. I could start doing this content thing full time, 100%. And prior to me coming out last year, people would have assumed my purpose in life was just doing one-on-one sessions with clients. But now, as you said, there's a whole hell of a lot of people who I guess have seen my stuff or are aware of me. And now that would sound foolish if I still had that in my head. My sole purpose is just to work a 9 to 5 prior to doing what I'm doing now. So it turns out we can add to our purpose. We can shift it. We can do different things in different seasons of our lives. And I think that when we are less rigid in this, but we're still disciplined, That's the best of both worlds, where you're disciplined enough to work towards your goals, work towards your aspirations and your purposes, and on the other end, rest in the fact that you are enough. Be able to schedule breaks, be able to enjoy life, be able to go and have fun and have some leisure time and earn your leisure, like the ladies say. Both of those things I think helps us. And when we forget or lose sight of either, that's when we're going to often run into major issues down the line.
Absolutely. I wanted to pick your brain on this because I've listened to you talk quite in detail about how you feel about the parties, the political parties.
Mm.
Coming from the same place, pretty much. I separated myself. And in fact, I often don't even like to have the discussion because it causes so much strife, right?
Oh Lord. Oh Lord.
Especially with us, you know.
Especially in our
But it's,
community. Yeah.
yeah, man. And it's like, you know what? I love my people, so I don't want to argue over something. Once again, I believe that we tied to our identity. You know, it's
Mm-hmm.
not baked in. We weren't born this. We weren't born representing the party, right? Whatever it was that created that situation, usually it's geography, it's family, it's something like that, you know.
Time in history that you were born.
Time,
Yep.
absolutely, that part. And actually, you know, I was die hard one way, and then I started to see the value in the other way.
All
But
right.
yeah,
So yeah,
as
so
it
you were saying that you wanted to discuss my thoughts about politics, and you were mentioning how in our community it's a very difficult conversation if you don't agree with a certain political party, right?
absolutely, yeah. And it's almost as if we tie it to our identity, right? So for us to abandon it feels like we're abandoning who we are. You know, if we decide that we want to get away from it, it's like we have to question everything that we've ever believed. And I think that it's really difficult for people to step away from it and disconnect it from their identity. Um, for me, it's much easier because I don't really find myself identifying with much. I'm very flexible, but it's a hard conversation to have. And oftentimes, man, it leads to a lot of strife. But what's your
Hmm.
opinion? What do you think, man, as far as, you know, should we identify with a certain political party? Do we have alliances that we need to hold? And I mean, I already know, but my audience, let's let them know what you think on this one.
Listen, man, the battle I've gone through, the lack of support that I've gotten with family and friends, not because of the therapy stuff. It's strictly been because of the political stuff and how, like you said, ingrained they are and enmeshed they are in this stuff. My starting point with this stuff is whenever and personally, despite how much I do this stuff on social media, 98% of the time I don't do this in my everyday life anymore. Because like you said, most people that I interact with, it's not that I'm substantially smarter than them, they're less aware of the varying reasons for why somebody could potentially disagree with them and not have negative motives or be ignorant for why it is they disagree. Like you said, they are rooted in a philosophy when it comes to politics where your political view, affiliation, party is connected to your racial, cultural identity. So now when you critique a Democrat, you basically critiquing black people. When you say what's wrong with the party, they feel like you're talking about them. When you talk about a particular political appointee, official, politician, they see it as a personal attack. How can you have a conversation with someone whose worldview is warped to that degree, where everything that you could say about a system, a party, a secular governmental setup, they've connected it to their faith, their identity, their cult, everything that they are as a person. So now when you leave the party, when you distance yourself from the party, when you don't support the party, they see it as leaving the black community. This is how you'll say something critical, let's say about Barack Obama, they'll call you a sellout or coon. That's how it happens. So the only justifiable explanation for how you can call people a house slave or a sellout or a coon or any of these other things, it only makes sense if you've overstepped the line in terms of your identity and not separating it. Basically, what I was getting at before was more or less, man. So the biggest challenge, I think, particularly in our community, is the people who make money and get into certain positions of privilege and influence that are benefactors of making sure our community continues to move and act and vote a certain political way. They want us to operate out of emotion, and operate
Absolutely.
and move out of emotionalism. So they've rigged it to where they've made it socially acceptable to attack anyone who has questions or critiques anything relating to the party. So, like, for those who are watching from your audience, I always drop the name drop from Orwell 1984, because my initial lens and view is, when you've been trained on how to think, when you've been trained on how to vote, when you've been trained on how to see things, and they've also trained you on how to react when people that you expect to act, vote, and move that way don't. Now you're just a foot soldier. Now you're Agent Smith. Shout out to Philosophical, where me and him a couple weeks ago, we were talking about this dynamic and how when you are completely brainwashed and propagandized of how to see the world, how to engage in politics, and you can't think for yourself or think outside of the box, then what ends up happening is everybody that thinks outside the box, you're trained now to distance yourself from, feel threatened by, or to attack.
Yeah.
So all they have to do is convince you that this is a reflection of what it means to be a good person. If you vote the way I vote, they make you think like basically black and Democrat equals the same thing. And now, like I said, if you critique anything, if you distance yourself, if you say, well, I can't support this party, this platform because of blah, 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 they won't care about blah, blah, blah. They'll care about how they'll feel at the fact that you're not going on part of the go along, get along crowd. And it's heartbreaking, but I also have enough understanding to know why they are where they are and why they think the way that they think. And rather than completely dismiss the relationships and do what they would do to me, I've learned that it's easier to just not engage in the conversations with most people who haven't thought long, hard, or seriously enough about what would be legitimately good reasons for why somebody would not agree with my stance and still be a good person and have good morals. They can't connect those
Absolutely.
dots. And that's because the party, the system, has trained them to think that way. So the news media has a role to play, our educational system, our religious communities, you name it. There's a whole host of things that's been set up as guardrails to kind of keep you within a certain political, intellectual plantation. And
Yeah.
once you know that, I think for a lot of people, they end up doing the exact same thing that people that are currently in our community that do that. Once you step outside of it, they start acting the same way, and I try not to. So I still maintain and keep relationships with people who are Trump supporters, who are Obama supporters, who are huge fans and voters of Kamala Harris, even though I don't know why, or Kamala Harris, whatever they pronounce her name is. The point is like, I just know the grace that I give and share towards them is not going to often be in return. And the way
Yeah.
to kind of minimize that conflict is not engaging in not engaging in conversations with people that I know aren't going to enter them in good faith and have already made their decision in advance.
Absolutely.
That's most people who are black in 2026 that still self-identify with political politics, period. And when I say
Yeah.
identify, I'm talking about not like, oh, I'm a little bit more liberal, or I have conservative here, a little liberal there. I'm talking about what Malcolm X was warning about. When you a Negro still identifying with systems that wasn't even designed for you or for your benefit, bro, I don't think you realize how crazy you looking. This is like walking around with a orange wig on. Like, you don't realize how insane you look to people that's like, you can vote for whatever policies you think make sense for your family or respective community, right? Like, apart from party, like, and when they can't do that well, you'll see and for the audience and everybody that's watching this, for me, it's at the end of the day, I don't care where people land. I care more about us understanding why we land there and understanding the propaganda that's been used to try to push us to a particular place, intellectually, politically. So, yeah, man, it's unfortunate, but more often than not, I've learned the hard way. most people that are the people who are most passionate about engaging in these things in the public are not. It's not about whether or not you have the right credentials or you going to school for it. It's the fact that a lot of people that are really, really big on this and act the way that they do, I find that the people who are the most knowledgeable about more than just their own perspective, they're wearing a set of glasses that humanizes the people they're talking to and looking at. The people
Absolutely.
who aren't reading about the rational fascism of the overthrow of communism, the people who aren't reading this are the same people who are the most passionate about what it means and what it is.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm learning and realizing, that the people who I've learned both experientially and just in observation, the people who are most truly knowledgeable, not just of their own perspective, but others, they understand. They get
Yeah.
it. But the
Well,
people
no, you hit the mark.
yeah,
Go
they
ahead,
just
brother.
got
I'm sorry.
they got one side, one perspective, vote blue no matter who, or vote red no matter what's said. They're operating out of an echo bubble in their minds. And if you're outside that bubble, you're considered a threat, stupid, ignorant, or some type of form of sellout. That's their worldview. Because again, if really good, smart, knowledgeable people are on the other side, why aren't you on that side? Like that's what they're so to connect that disconnect, all those people got to be crazy. All those people got to be sellouts. All those people got to be misinformed. So everything that they think is negative, again, CNN has educated them. MSNBC has taught them. You could say the reverse, that Fox News has done it. Each of these respective, and again, if they went to college, if they went to most colleges, they have a particular political viewpoint. If they're watching Fox, they're going to have a certain viewpoint. They're watching CNN, if they're watching MSNBC. So they've already been trained on how to think about people that doesn't fall under their echo chamber.
Interesting.
Yeah, man. So once you see it, for me, I'll say it with you and your audience, the best thing we could do is just literally start reading for ourselves. And once we do that and stop assuming that the people who are on TV has our best intentions in mind, or that politicians are telling us the truth, or that all of the celebrities, influencers, and religious folks who are pushing us to move a certain way, how are they benefiting by pushing you that way? Do they get special tickets to things? Are they going to shows? Are they getting special outings to stuff? There's usually a whole host of reasons for why the people at the top are getting certain exclusive interviews, stuff like that. Like that's why they're doing it, because now they're on the end. And I'm like, this has nothing to do with do they actually truly believe this stuff is legit? Or even if they do, what's the things that they know is bad and harmful that they're not telling you? So my view is, listen, either you're on a plantation or you're not. And every person who functions like you are on a plantation, when you try to leave, or when you do leave, they're going to do everything in their power to convince you that you're moving in the wrong direction. And they will use slave-like language. They will use slavery-like terminology. And it's funny that the people who think they're free are the ones who use all the slavery and Jim Crow-like language to describe you when you're leaving them and their side. It's that's just the nature of the beast. But I think what's happening is there maybe start to be a renaissance. My view is not to push everybody to the right or to this view or that view. I'm pushing people to books. I'm pushing people to not be politically loyal to any system, party, or anything. I'm pushing you to be loyal to your morals. Be loyal to actually reading again. And most people I know stop reading after high school or college.
100%. Yeah.
These cats, they don't watch documentaries, they don't read, they don't look at a lot of things from multiple, and they don't even watch news from multiple different sources. They don't even look at independent news, but they know enough information to state why you shouldn't be speaking on it. Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
That's been my experience. And from launching the podcast, it's been pretty split. You have the people who love what you're doing, the people that hate you, the people that's trying to stop you from making money and being able to support your family, the people who want to give you money and support you and your family. All of that happens once you put your face out there and talk on anything that means anything.
You're right, man. And you hit on a few good points. And one of the things that I always tell people is, uh, for as highly as you think of yourself or you may see yourself, there's somebody out there that experienced you in a different way. So
Mm-hmm.
you may think very highly of yourself, right? You think, I'm a good person. I do
Mm-hmm.
good things for people. I'm a righteous person. There's somebody, if you ask them, how did you experience so and so? They're going to say,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this mother, you know what I'm saying? So think of it in that way, right? If you really want to
Yeah,
think of
yeah.
yourself as being as self righteous and as I'm better because I have better ideals or morals or whatever it may be,
Mm-hmm.
there's somebody out there that experienced you in a totally opposite way, and they're going
Mm-hmm.
to speak to that in a totally opposite way. So for how you address other people, just take that into consideration. And you're absolutely right about how we need to see people as human.
Yeah.
Once you get to that place where you can see people as human, regardless of what their ideals may be, etc., you can better understand because we're not that different from one another in what we want out of life.
Mm-hmm.
But let's see past what's going on the surface, how people might be treating us, to where they might be mentally because of the trauma in their lives, what
Mm-hmm.
they're dealing with in their day to day, or whatever it may be. Let's try to humanize people first. Now, I'm not saying let somebody whoop your ass in the street,
Yeah, yeah.
but if somebody, try to see beneath what possibly could be going on
Mm-hmm.
to who they truly are. And if you stop and really talk to somebody, hey, man, what's going on? Where are you at right now? They may even give you what's really going on beneath the surface. When I first
Yeah,
moved
like
here to area,
yeah, go ahead.
go ahead.
What you
No,
about
you
to say?
good. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, man, I've learned that most people aren't interested in that right now. And I
Yeah.
think what you're doing, what I'm attempting to do, is putting it out there so that people can start to, oh, I had one view when it came to therapy and mental health and talking to people and reaching out for help. And now I'm seeing that there's merit to that. It took and takes people that look like you and me to actually just step out there, put these ideas out there and explain what's happening for some people to start to get it. But most of us in our everyday lives, it's totally normal to surround yourself with like-minded people. I've walked that fine line where I've become a friend of being alone, but I'm totally cool with being around other people. And I think I
You
used
hit
to
it
be
on the
the
head.
reverse of that, right? Where
Yeah.
it's like when you're so big on social circles, connections, hanging out with everybody, wanting to be included in everything, it's devastating when you start having these wake up calls. I'm like, oh my God, I believe this all the time and this is a lie. Oh, this isn't the truth. Step, I think I have a totally different view than 95% of people that I live with or, from our religious community. What do I do now? Like, you have to get used to, especially as a man, you have to get to a point at some point in your life where you're willing to go against the grain over something you know is true for you and be okay with what comes with that. And also I think men, we've been almost handed and handed just naturally a lot of what we did have in terms of connections. And I think real masculinity is forging and building your life. That also includes building your community, not just having it by accident.
Yeah,
That's the thought.
absolutely, 100%. I want to go back to what you were saying about reading. It's very important because you're going to read something out there that's going to change your life. For me, ironically enough, it was two books, and one was Malcolm X's autobiography, in which he said, and I quote,
Hmm.
hopefully I don't get it wrong, he compared the Democratic Party and the Republican Party to the sly fox and the hungry wolf.
Yes.
He said the sly fox cuddles up to you, gets
Hmm.
next to you, shows his teeth in a smile, and then he eats you. The wolf just eats you. So he had no
Yeah.
alliance to either party. You know,
Yeah. And it's weird. What's so crazy about that is now in 2026, the people who wear his t-shirts and quote him on Instagram the most, it's either they forget about that, are unaware of it, or think that that doesn't apply anymore in 2026 to
mm,
both political parties. And I'm like, why? Why? Like, what made you think that? Like, and number two, which is crazy, is I now feel comfortable knowing that the James Baldwins and Malcolm X's of the world, I'm a lot closer to, Booker T. Washington of the world, I'm a lot closer to politically in many
Yeah,
respects. And the people who hate me today would hate them if they were here today. And they don't realize,
yeah,
they hold them up as super hot. Like the people that they love and quote the most, especially from our respective community, I actually am much more closely aligned with them. And
absolutely.
I know the person in front of me very quickly if politics come up and they say anything that where they don't really realize that they're in the mouth of the wolf or the what you say,
The Sly
wolf or the
Fox.
fox, right?
Yeah,
You're
the Sly
getting
Fox. Yes,
eaten.
sir.
Yeah, you're they're both a threat. They both have ways to harm you in different ways. And you're like, I'm team fox. I'm
Right.
team lion or team wolf. And I'm like, okay, but you're a sheep. So that's where I'm at, where it's like the people who have woken up or are waking up. And the crazy part is the Epstein files, man. Epstein files just came out, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the wild part is people are so locked into the two-party mode system. I'm team this, team that. They were interested in those files, not to acknowledge how corrupt Hollywood, the bureaucracy, how evil many of the people that are considered political or economic elites are. So many of these people are in on it. They looked at it through the lens of, is there people on the other team that's in those files? And that lets you know how indoctrinated and brainwashed they are. This stuff is bad, it's evil, it's vicious, and you're still looking at it through party lines. If you didn't read it, if you didn't look it up, if you weren't aware that there were people all across the political spectrum that are in those files and saying, man, that's a lot of disgusting, corrupt, vile, evil stuff going on. And it's some liberals, some Republicans and Democrats that's in there. If that wasn't your conclusion, but, oh, I'm a Democrat, how many times was Trump in it? And then the Trump people was like, well, how many times was Bill Clinton in it? Like, if that's your starting point, if that's what you came to, you didn't actually care about the victims. You cared to know whether the people you don't like were in that file. And the point as proof for why their side is bad. That's how broken we are and controlled we are mentally and psychologically, where files like that can come out and people still were looking at it through party lines. And I'm like, that lets you know most people are like that, man. And when you get there, it's like, I'm learning now, it's easier for me to engage in these conversations when people are paying me for it or I'm getting paid for it via YouTube versus doing it in my everyday life for free. It makes no sense to me.
it doesn't. It doesn't.
It doesn't. And it's like, oh, I have a meeting coming up or a debate or content where I have to cover this. Let me brush up on it. Let me look into this. Let me read some articles. Let me read some books. Let me see some documentaries. Prep for it. Then when I get ready and engage in it, if I'm engaged, whether they want to listen, they don't, whether they have something interesting or they just want to be partisan, at least I'm benefiting from it in some way. My normal everyday life, most people I know, after about 3 to 5 minutes, I know how superficial I can basically get. I know your script once I hear like one or two opinions. And once you know that, I don't say you prematurely judge. Yeah, I guess you do. You judge people enough to know how deep you shouldn't go conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I try to step away from it. I want to get your opinion on the church and the community. I grew up in the church. My father was a devout Christian church of Christ. My mother grew up Baptist, and their early lives were very influenced by the church.
Mm-hmm.
I would argue to say that for them to be as young as they were and engulfed in it, my mom, she was pregnant in high school with my brother, and she told me, she said, I was kicked out of the choir because I, was pregnant out of wedlock. She then married my father. She went on to marry my father and had me. But I told her, I said, I feel like the pressure of you all in church sent you in a certain direction to where you may not have been ready to start a family and actually be married. But because you felt the pressure of, if I'm going to have sex, I need to be married, You guys
Mm,
went ahead and took a leap of faith, and it ultimately didn't work out. And I think that it did both of them a huge disservice.
mm,
Um, I found the people in my life to be very hypocritical in their way of trying to preach to me what I should be doing in my daily life when they were doing the opposite. So I questioned things early in life as it pertained to the church.
mm,
The second book I came across was in my 30s, was a book by somebody you may know from the Montel Williams show. Her name is Sylvia Brown. She
mm-hmm.
wrote a book called Saging While Aging.
Yeah.
And in this book, she talked about reincarnation in depth. And she talked about how we come to this planet to have a experience that are for our souls to elevate to the next level. And when I read this book, man, I went through an existential crisis. I
Mm-hmm.
think
Mm-hmm.
that anytime you go through any change, there's going to be a bit of a crisis there because you're being stripped of your identity once again, right? So reading this book sent me down a spiral, man. I was depressed, man, for probably about a month. But it made more sense to me than anything that I had gotten up until that point. And I had to contest with that, right? I had to
Mm-hmm.
kind of really look at things from a not people are good or bad, but human, right? And we
Mm-hmm.
all have a shadow self. And that was the first time that I had gotten that idea. Before that, I looked at things in terms of good and bad. Like you're a good
Mm-hmm.
person or you're a bad person. You're gonna go to hell. Especially if you did something against me, obviously. You were a bad person. We all think that way. But what's your take, man, on the church and the Black experience in the church?
Yeah, man. It's a very, very touchy subject. I've learned, unfortunately, the hard way that every topic it seems like I cover, I've learned my channel is a space for the taboo, the space for people to just be even allowed to ask these conversations, right? And
Yeah.
I went way deeper, man. I grew up in Pentecostal apostolic, my whole life. I went to biblical university, in Cairn University, which is formerly Philadelphia Biblical University. Got a bachelor's in biblical studies, and at one point even contemplated going on to get a master's of divinity. So I was so in the weeds in it at one point that I had one or two professors really be like, "Man, you the way your brain operates, bro, like you could really, really kind of approach doing like biblical commentary and potentially even, if you want to start learning the biblical languages, man, you might be in a position where people could start seeing you as like an actual theologian." So that was how much I was really into it. And the problem was that the questions I was having wasn't lining up with how I was originally raised and trained to do things, to see things. And I think the biggest issue with the church, beyond the normal stuff you mentioned, double standards, hypocrisy, what they allow in certain respects. I think the biggest issue that the a lot of churches are having to wrestle with is probably A, relevancy, and B, effectiveness, and C, a lack of genuine, true honesty and transparency about some of the problems within the faith and specifically the text itself.
Yeah.
I've learned that a lot of people that have left, a lot of people that are atheists or at least agnostic, typically have a much wider, greater understanding for why it is that they don't believe anymore than for the people who are still in it and do believe.
Yeah.
They have a much more in-depth understanding. Now again, this isn't across the board. There are definitely exceptions to the rule. Certain pastors and certain leaders and people that are super, into religion, and specifically those that may be great at debates. The average layman, I don't think that they truly know what's in the book. What are contradictions? You've been raised and shown to be told they're not contradictions. And then what happens then is when somebody who acknowledges, no, they're contradictions, and yeah, this was added later, and there was politics involved in when these books came to be and which ones were included and which ones were like, when you start digging in the weeds of this stuff and really compare and contrast it to normal baseline standards of what we would expect for something to be considered reliable, it's totally reasonable for people to have legitimate questions or be like this. Some of these things are not what they appeared or what we were taught or told to be. And so for me, again, when you get to a place just like with politics where you look at things from more than one angle, can understand how people can get there, it humanizes Christians, Muslims, atheists, agnostics. You now see people as human, number one. And it makes you way, way less arrogant and pompous in thinking that you know how to, out of all the time that the earth has ever existed and humanity's ever existed on earth, you were just one of the lucky ones to get it right in terms of faith. You were born at a time in history where out of the billions and billions and billions on top of human beings, let alone other creatures that's ever existed, you were one of the lucky ones. You were probably one of the 1% to 2% that's ever existed since the earth has been here that got it right. And every single person that believes in a religion that's different from yours thinks the same thing.
Absolutely.
And when you start with that in a walk of humility, it helps you, honestly. And then the other thing is when I mentioned earlier about relevancy and effectiveness, a lot of these issues and questions for a lot of folks wouldn't even be that big or that deep, or people wouldn't even have that big of an issue with the church if it was more effective or even relevant. I think most people, not most, but a lot of people who have left, who've grown distant from it, it's not seen as relevant. It's not seen as effectual. It's seen as a wing of, especially in the Black community, as a wing of an extension of the Democrat Party. It's not seen
Yes.
as being anything else. It's not life. It's not helping us to generate generational wealth. They're not taking our resources and some churches are doing that, to be fair. And I actually knew of a few that were doing that, but most churches weren't setting up their members that have been giving for 20, 30 years into affordable housing units.
Yeah.
Right? They're not buying acres of land to start growing food to, so it's a thing where it's like effectiveness, relevance, those are probably their biggest issues. But then when we get to the meat of it, when you sit down with somebody who's really, really looked in on this stuff and does a 2-hour discussion on it, and they go over in detail from Genesis to Revelation, the problem with any actual text, rather than just state that, well, if you don't believe in it, it's because you're in this category that's negative. Reimagine that maybe they're drawing logical conclusions anybody would have about some of these things. Like if there's discrepancies in the gospel about when Jesus resurrected and who he appeared to, and these things aren't lining up, you don't just say that both authors are right.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
it's stuff like that where it's like if later manuscripts have things that early manuscripts don't, you don't get to say that the later manuscripts were inspired. You don't get to say that the Bible is inerrant, is functionally flawless if it's based on a translation of things that have additions that weren't in earlier translations or manuscripts. You don't get to, I mean, people do that, but like you don't get to do that with people who know better. And it's that type of dynamic, man, where it again, I was in it 100%. I get it. I can go periodically. And I do think that there is merit to religion. Generally speaking, I think that spirituality and certain components of religion can be very helpful culturally to protect people, to protect families, to protect, like there's certain components to certain religions that I think can be very helpful in general spirituality. But there's also a whole host of things that are extremely harmful, and people know that if they were in the shoes of those who were being ordered to be attacked by Israel, they would want to defend themselves, right? They would want to fight back. They wouldn't just say, well, it's God's will for you to take my land and my property. Like you would be like, no, I'm going to fight for what's mine. Like, and that's the thing where it takes them a while to look at it from multiple angles to where at the end, and this is the crazy part, I've I've had experiences, man, that I really haven't talked much about, like psychologically and emotionally, and even just like visions of things that if I was to tell people, it's not that I don't believe that a God exists. It's not that I don't believe that Yeshua or the Jesus Messiah type existed or someone like him existed. It's more so that I think that I'm not arrogant enough to walk around and tell everybody how I see things is how everybody else needs to see it or they're wrong. I'm
Absolutely.
not I'm not comfortable with being that, moving that way or acting that way anymore. And the reason why is because everybody who knows their faith is their religious attachment to this thing is based on faith is walking around as if they have certainty. And I'm like, okay, you can believe so strongly to where you're certain about your faith, but you know for sure that if you were to walk to your local YMCA to walk across the pool, 99.9% of you are going to fall in, no matter how much you
100%.
pray, no matter how much faith you have. And then the question is, did you have the faith of a mustard seed? Did you pray for something and it didn't happen? Or is everything that you pray for that doesn't happen is because it wasn't in God's will, and then when it does happen, it isn't his will? I'm like, okay, I mean that's a very interesting way of comporting confirmation to always make it seem like things are moving in the way in which your God wants it to be. But it's also tangibly possible, man, that I think the harshest thing, and again, it's the biggest wake up call, is if you question any of this stuff, it gets easier to just start building community with other people who are already there than trying to drag and get other people to get to where you've gotten to when this was something that happened in your head and in your heart.
Absolutely.
So that's my
Absolutely.
view on religion. I haven't done a episode on it as of yet, just because I think it's going to take so much more time for me to prep. And I think if I did it specifically on Christianity, it probably would be 100 questions
Yeah.
for Christians or 100
Yeah.
questions about the Bible, right? So if I do decide to do something like that, it's going to be a mega big thing. Like I'm going to take a lot of time, and I'll talk about my journey and where I'm at now. But if you have to ask me directly, I am officially an agnostic theist. So for those,
Man.
yeah, I'm an agnostic theist, which means I don't have enough information or certainty anymore to think I'm in a place to judge anybody about what they believe is out there and how we got
That's
here, how long we've been here, and what's the exact method of the duration of time of how long it's taken us to be here. So I'm agnostic with that. But I believe that there was an initial great starting point that started it all. And that I think is God. Yeah, and that would make me a theist. So you believe in theism, you believe that God or a creator, a great starting point, a great initiation of all things existed. Based on your experience, your reality, what you read, what you've been exposed to, and how you were raised, determines what type of God you think that is. And in every single major, you know, like if you look at like actual reports and stuff, you'll see that people's view of God is usually just cultural. Like,
It
you
is.
know, from how the gods look, how they act, how they behave, what they're interested in, and how it'll be like, oh, the god, you know, you live by water, and now it's the god of the sea that you worship, and then you live you live in this other region, and now it's the god of the fields, and it's like it's a very interesting. And so many of the things that's a part of your quote unquote culture that you think are fine, your God is fine with it. And then you go to another culture, we don't eat this thing. And now, like, the God, you know, our God is against eating this. And it's like, even down to this is why you got a black Jesus and white Jesus. It's the
Right.
same
Right.
concept where, right?
Yeah.
People make God into, people think that their view of what pops in their head of God is something that's completely objective and out there, and they're conforming to it versus the other way around.
Yeah.
Usually your view of God and the realm and its realm, his realm, whatever, it's usually conditioned to what you think and what you want him to be, or what you
Absolutely.
or how you've been raised to think and see him as. So yeah, so that's, I think that's my very long answer to my thing about religion.
I got one more for you, and then I'll let you get out of here because I know you got a lot of business to take care of. And it's in regards to race, man. I did listen to your podcast after Charlie Kirk was killed.
Mm,
And I said, man, this man had a similar experience to me, and where you balanced it out and you said, okay, in my life, I've had this experience, but I've also had this experience. My experience has been the same. I grew up in California for the first 10 years of my life in a very culturally diverse neighborhood. At 11 years old, we moved back to Chicago. And on the west side, it was Chicago, as you know, if you don't know, is very segregated. And I remember one of the first questions I asked my mom when we moved there is, where are all the white people? Because we were in an
mm,
all black neighborhood. I then moved to Cleveland. I was there for 12 years, and Cleveland is very segregated as well. And you're more than likely going to have a bad experience with the opposite race out
mm,
there. After being there for 12 years, I moved to Phoenix. And when I moved to Phoenix, much different experience. Very integrated city. Race is not an issue. Had to contend with it after being in Cleveland for so many years. I came here and it was like, oh, okay, the world is different.
mhm,
It's not,
mhm,
you're seeing things through the lens of probably where you live. My experience here
yeah,
has been very different as it pertains to the police. Have a
mhm,
great relationship with them. They speak. I don't get followed around. All of the issues that people say that they have, I do not have here in Phoenix, Arizona. Um, I was just with a group of friends yesterday, and the group was equally mixed, and there was no conversation about anything that, we didn't have one of those conversations where you're trying to make the others feel comfortable, that you're comfortable with them. That
mhm,
conversation, right?
mhm, mhm,
Um, and I remember when I got here, I got a chance to be around people who not only didn't look like me, but had higher status and more money than I did. The first job that I was in, I was working primarily in Scottsdale and Paradise Valley, which, if you don't know, you can look it up. It's one of the higher end neighborhoods here in the Phoenix area.
mhm,
And I got to experience so many different people who had so many different backgrounds. And these people had money and they had status, or seemingly they had that, right? But I would talk to them, man, and I would have conversations, and you realize underneath that they were just human. Some of them were struggling with possibly losing their homes, $1 million houses. Some of them had all of this wealth and stuff like that. And when I tell them, hey, we can't fix your air conditioning unit today, can you go stay with a family member? I remember one woman in particular, I looked in her face and I'm like, oh, she doesn't have anybody. She's in this huge house by herself, but she doesn't have anybody. It really taught me as an adult that no matter your status, money, race, all of these things, we're all human and we all have a struggle to contend with.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
but I want to get and that's another area where I contend with a lot of people in my community because they want me to see things through a racial lens, and I just refuse to. My experience will not allow me to. And my wife told me the other day, she said, I know you don't believe that there's racist people out there, but there are. And I told her, I
mhm,
said, it's not that I don't believe that there's racist people out there.
mhm,
I just don't pay attention to that, because what good does it do me to pay attention
mhm,
to people who don't like me based on whatever it is?
mhm,
Whether it be
mhm,
my race, whatever it is, you're going to find somebody who doesn't like you regardless, right? But I also feel like I love myself enough that that king thing that most people consider themselves to be, I really believe I am that king. And kings do
mhm.
not allow the thoughts of peasants or the opinions of peasants to affect them. So
Yeah, yeah,
if we're
yeah, yeah,
telling
yeah.
ourselves that we're kings and queens, we shouldn't be
Mhm,
affected by people who don't like us, regardless of the reason,
mhm,
right? But what do you think?
mhm. I'm somewhat pretty close to where you are. I acknowledge that racism exists. I just don't let it control my life. I've actually
Absolutely.
experienced it. I've had white males, white older white man, threatened to say he wanted to hang me when I was 16 years old in Edgewater Park, New Jersey. I have gone to the police when myself and my family members potentially were in danger, and the police told us to get out. Like, just literally said, like, listen, y'all making too much noise, just leave. Like, I have had police made phone calls to police in various in Philadelphia where I was working for over 5 years. So once or twice we've called the police and they just never came. So, and I'm like, so, and a whole host of other examples. So I have experienced these things, like you said, when I mentioned it in the Charlie Kirk um, response video that I did do. But like I said, but I've also had enough positive and negative experiences with Black people to realize that I had to be able to extend that to white people as well. And I think that was the first big wake up call for me, was when life hit the fan. It was some white people and some Black people that stood 10 toes down and helped me get my life back in order. And there was a lot of white people and Black people who didn't. And I'm like, so I have to go off of character. I have to go off of what you show me. I have to go off of your behavior, your like the content of your character, like that MLK would say. That's what I have to go off of. And that's been much more helpful than not. Do I walk around naively to where I think anywhere and everywhere I can be welcome? No, I do enough due diligence and research to look and see, certain places and spaces if it's much more ideal. If me and my wife were to ever relocate, we're going to do research. We're going to look to see, if it's a pretty diverse place, if it's predominantly Black, predominantly white, and, do our visits and do our walkthroughs and see how people actually are and go off of that, right? So this is what happens when, like you said, identity politics, when it's pushed to the extreme, you basically, what you're doing is a form of racial, what's the right word I want to use? Marxism. It's like racial and cultural Marxism, where when you have a economic model that puts people in the haves and have-nots, and those who haves are evil, and that those who are have-nots are just all perpetual victims, when you start categorizing people in that way, you're going to have people that are broke or on the lower tier economic tier that could do evil things, but because in your mind all the evil people are the rich people, you're going to overlook a lot of stuff that's happening on your side. So when you take that concept and you apply it to race, gender, sexuality, political affiliations, and now you see all these different groups through the lens of good and bad, you're going to accept bad things from people that look that's Black, and you won't acknowledge any good from people that's white. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Where's the nuance? Where's the acknowledgement that part of the reason for why desegregation happened was because a whole bunch of non-Black folks was a part of that process. Part of the reason for integration was because it was a whole lot of non-Black folks who was also part of those sit-ins too and protests too. And guess what? There was also a whole lot of Black folks who wasn't a part of them.
Absolutely.
Exactly. So that's where I'm at, where it's like, it's actually easier for me to go case by case, person by person, message by message, and see the body of where they are and how they move and how they live, and judge them off of that, than like, oh, if they got a Black face, then that means they should be in my space. Why? I'm like, oh, white is right. Why would I assume that? Like, why can't I just go off of people's actual behaviors? And it's wild that what you're saying, I'm saying, sounds revolutionary, and it's not. It's literally treating people the way you want to be treated, because you don't want them to see the tattoos and they see my tattoos, or they see just my Black face. You don't want them to start making presuppositions about us, but then we do that about them. And
100%.
they don't, and the people within our community that's doing this doesn't realize, listen, man, many of you won't ever truly reach your purpose or get to certain places and opportunities in life because your view is so skewed. You've already, a lot of people reduced it down to, I only want to work with Black people. Okay, that's your choice. They gotta be Black, but they also gotta vote Democrat. Okay, let's get a smaller box. Oh, they gotta be Black, vote Democrat, and they gotta be a Christian. All right, let's get, we gotta get to the denomination too. And I'm like, listen, man, when y'all whittle it down to all that's left, you're going to learn and realize that the world is way bigger than the box you keep trying to keep good people in your world. Only good people can function in. There are really good people that aren't a part of your church, that aren't a part of your denomination, that aren't a part of your religious or political affiliation, and also different skin color. And the crazy part is, a lot of the people who are the loudest on social media about this stuff, you actually follow them, you actually do life with them enough And if you actually observe them enough, they deal with all types of people all day, every day about a whole host of things. But then when they get around certain folks, when they get in the public realm and they get on these social media platforms, they want to, I'm the Hotep king, black, pro black, everything. And I'm like, they say that. But then when you realize, like, bro, your boss is white. Like, what are you talking about? The seminar, the conference you're doing is at a white-owned establishment. Most of the stuff that you're wearing is white-owned brands. Like, what are you talking about? When you go on vacation, a lot of times you're not even going to black countries. You're going to Hispanic ones or white place spot or Asian spots all over the world. Like, this is what I mean. So the reality is like for me, when I've whittled it down and I've really looked at it, most people are hypocrites in this space. They don't really know truly what it is and looks like in this stuff. And then what happens is they judge everybody off of a script they've been told of how to see all these things. The reality is, man, people gonna do what they want to do. They're gonna judge people the way they want to judge them. I've learned, and I think what helped me with this is the amount of times I've seen people who were black that look like me, who I grew up with, that turned their back on me or did switch up on me. I didn't turn my back on black people, but I realized and learned us both being black isn't enough for you to not be a human being and treat me as another human being.
Absolutely.
That's not enough. You could kill black on black crime. Me being black ain't gonna stop another black man from shooting me if he wants to.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Me being black ain't gonna stop you from doing anything it is that you do or don't want to do. We're gonna treat each other at the whole spectrum of what happens in the human experience, both good and bad. So
absolutely.
Once you've acknowledged that exists, I'm like, just reimagine if that applies outside of the community, and it does. So, and it also helped me go into PWI for when I went to my biblical university. It was a predominantly white institution. So I got exposed to a whole gambit of different types of white people.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so these ones are more conservative. These ones are more liberal. These ones are ultra religious. These ones are super political. And now I'm learning the nuance of different types of white people. And then I realized I took that concept and applied it back to the black community and other groups as well. And I was like, there's so many different categories that people in buckets can fall into. It's extremely reductionistic to white, bad, black, good. I'm like, we do know that, like, there's definitely, this is the crazy part. I could be politically aligned with 90 to 95% of what the black community actually stands for.
Yeah.
All I got to do is run as Republican and I'll get no support.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
So even then, the racial card that they're using and talking about race and how important race is, it only matters until the political box is checked off as well. So that's when I realized, like, people yap about this stuff, but when you really, really hold their feet to the fire, they don't live it, they don't walk it. Only people who I think really do truly live in silos, where they completely are like, I'm going to decolonize from everything. I'm relocating. I'm leaving. If you ain't doing that, you are part of the American experience. That includes black, white, and everything else in between. And I think we would help ourselves out a lot better if we thought like that when it comes to immigration, border security, working together, learning from other communities. I would love to get a bunch of brothers that's out here to meet, to set up a meeting with us and the Amish out here in PA and Jersey, and learn from them on how to start our own farms.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But you would never, but somebody who has the mentality that you were describing, they would never think to go to the Amish to learn anything.
No.
So it's that type of dynamic. So I've learned you can't drag everybody to the water. You got to let people do what they're gonna do and build with the people who are where you want to be. And that's to me like the best starting point, regardless of what their race or color is.
Absolutely. My mentor was actually a Mormon guy, and he was the first one who kind of took me and said, hey, I'm going to make you great in this trade. And I see your potential. Like, you have great potential, and I'm going to help you get to where you need to be in this trade. And he helped me every step of the way from getting through the trade. You know, I had some things that could have set me back. He said, I still got your back. He got me my first job, helped me get my EPA. I mean, the whole gambit. And I've had such an experience with Mormons to where I'm like, hey, I sit down and listen to them and talk to them and stuff, man. And I mean, the vast majority of Mormons are white. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
there's never an issue. And I actually work with some of them. I do some work with them. And yeah, man, they keep it in house as much as possible, man. They take care of one another. And they, but they've extended their hand to me. And actually, one of my first big contracts, a
Mm.
Mormon guy gave me, it was for a senior citizen building that
Ooh,
had
nice.
250 air conditioning units on it. So that was my
Shout out
first
to the
big break
Mormons.
in the business. Yeah, shout out to them. So
Hey,
hey man,
hey.
Jeff, it's been real, brother.
Listen, I genuinely appreciate this, man, and welcoming me in. I know we're going to do more work together. And listen, bro, I'm in the
100%.
works of getting ready to potentially start a panel show.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think me and my team gonna keep you on the radar and see what your schedule is, and if you'd be open to coming on a couple times a month, join the panel, because I think you would be an excellent addition. And you have your own platform, and I've already listened to it. And even in terms of how this conversation went, we need more men like you on panels to discuss this stuff in a way where we ain't got to get crazy or ratchet or insane to get our points across, even if we disagree with people. So yeah, man, my executive assistant, she's definitely going to reach out to you soon,
I
and just
appreciate that, man.
yeah, man, because I think, as you're building up your platform and getting your tech and everything, and your equipment and stuff in order between then and when we officially are ready to start, man, you might be a really great addition, and it will expose you to a lot of other people out in the YouTubian space as well, man. So I appreciate you welcoming me here, bro.
Thank you, man. Where can they find you at? I mean, not only on YouTube, because you have other things going on, and you're actually
Mhm.
doing some things with the brothers outside of YouTube. Where can they find you at?
Yeah, well, obviously, like you said, YouTube Ask a Brother podcast featuring Jeff St. James is my primary point of contact, point of place for reference for everybody. But then I have all my different links for everything, from booking me for consultations, one-on-ones, special engagements if they want me to come out in person for something, even down to our movie book club. Everything is on the YouTube page. I am on Instagram. Eventually, we're going to get Facebook together. And we do have a TikTok and Spotify. We do have a Spotify. I got to check that myself. I haven't checked it in a month because we just
Righteous.
created it last month. So we're in the works with a lot of this stuff, man. But the most important thing is, like, it isn't just about talking on the mic for me. We launched 4 or 5 months ago our men's self-improvement group that I'm very, very proud of since launching launching this platform. And, starting a movie book club. We argue all the time about ain't nobody care about this or care about that. And it's always just about sports and this or that. And I decided, let's start a movie book club. And we did. And now we're getting people reading. We're getting people responding to cinema and thinking deeply about how this is a factor in their lives, or of how they move. And we're eventually going to be announcing something hopefully this month for the ladies as well, with two very well-known content creators. So, and then also some retreats, conferences, and some other projects I'm working on later this year, man. We got a lot of stuff in the works. So, I appreciate you allowing me to just get my voice out there in the new spaces and places. And like I said, the starting point is YouTube, but for anybody that's interested in connecting with me, go to YouTube. All the links are there. And, just look forward to collabing with like-minded people like yourself.
Absolutely. Please go support my brother, like and subscribe. And as I always say, if this content triggered you, then you're in the right place, because my opinion should not be causing you so much strife. There's some questions that you may need to ask yourself in regards to where this is coming from.
Mhm.
And I always say, well, my new saying will be, do your best and let God do the rest, and let the universe do the rest. It's the Unapologetic Perspective, man. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. Look forward to working with you again soon.
Absolutely, man. Thank you. And listen, man, enjoy yourself, and good luck to you on the platform.
Thank you. All right.
All right. So is that?
I don't know how to log out of here, so my guy, you
It
take
should
care
be a
of all
way
of
to
that.
stop recording.
Okay, in session for all. Right on. I got you. Yeah, Jeff, I'll be in touch, man. I appreciate you greatly, brother. I appreciate everything that you're doing. Obviously,
Yeah, man.
man. I'll be supporting as much as I possibly can. And yeah, thank you very much, man.
For sure. Like I said,
All
I'm gonna
right.
reach out to my people, and we're in the works of trying to get a good list together of potential panel people. And I think for what you're doing and what you started, panels is the next step for you. where you'll
Absolutely.
constantly be getting introduced and exposed to new groups, engaging in these type of conversations with multiple people simultaneously, and your audience seeing you in that way is going to be
Yeah.
nice. And then you can pull the clips from it and have it stream on. Even when we do it, everybody that jumps in on the panel, they can stream it to their channels automatically.
Got it.
So, you'll get the views just by that, and then you can clip it up, especially if you have key parts, and then just post it on your page. Yeah.
My man. Yeah. And
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man.
check those books out that you showed, because I haven't read any of those books. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick those books up. And,
Yeah,
I'm actually
1984
reading
Game
too.
Changer. I'm not finished the Michael Parenti book yet, but
Oh, okay.
I did find that one that you told me on Amazon just now, so I already set it up to lock that in. So
Second one I'm reading.
Courage to Be
This
This
Life.
Sound like my life.
Right.
Yeah, man.
It takes a
I'm
lot
gonna
of
go get
courage
some-
to do this, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go get something to eat because I have not eaten much at all today. But listen,
All
bro,
right,
we're gonna be
brother.
in touch, and good luck with everything, bro.
Thank you. Same to you.
All right, then. Peace.
Peace.